This is the presentation of the solo show, Why Do I Feel Comfortable Around Strangers by artist Clarke Medley from Missouri. Clarke Medley's paintings offers you a wording and a paraphrasing paintings where ontological thoughts are hidden through letter forms in different techniques and patterns of Art Deco. Clarke Medley inspires himself on the possibilities of what are the sounds, quotation of conversations, textual text that he lives and experiences in his own environment. It's an ontological approach to thoughts, wording, and letter forms through a very concerned inner capturing of the reality, where Clarke Medley connects to humans and to many other forms of communication. Letter forms evoke ancient civilization writings, as well as graffiti art, street art, and different provocations in shapes that reminds dancing bodies, which was the first inspiration in his origins of this creation.
My name is Clarke Medley. I'm an artist. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, 1971-ish, and it was like just barely after. I've been working as an artist for my almost entire adult life, since I was about 18 years old. I started off in tattooing and have greatly grown into the fine art world. It's been an exciting adventure, starting off with something that was very much an outsider art and now going into something that's much more of an insider art, where now we're showing in galleries and doing large format scale pieces. Line work is incredibly important in my work. It is the focal point. And since I do writing, it's interesting that writing is known as lines of thought. So when I work in pieces, I generally work in a way that the line creates movement and drama in the piece. And then I begin to exaggerate things, play with patterns, play with form. Sometimes I'm very loose, sometimes I'm very tight. I don't want to actually ever be encapsulated into one specific genre. I think that I can actually meld my styles into anything. One of my newest pieces is a painting called Envy is a Knife That You Hold to Your Own Throat. That knife that's held to your own throat it's basically a metaphor. It's something that you think of whenever you've dealt with somebody that's envious of maybe a little bit of your success, or you've dealt with a relationship that has something with a little bit of your success. Anything that has that, whenever you go out into the world, there are not people that are always in your corner. And yet, the person they're hurting them is mostly themselves. Instead of pulling themselves up and trying to elevate their own status, trying to elevate their own abilities or skills, they just want to constantly break people down. And I think it's a very negative thing. So since I like to play in opposites, I thought, like, how can I take something that's completely negative and turn it into something completely beautiful? And I think that's the puzzle. Every artist has a technique where they'll try to solve a problem, or they'll solve an equation in some way on a piece, on a painting. And it's fascinating. And with art now, I'm finding myself creating puzzles, creating techniques that have been used in different mediums, but trying to transform them into new mediums now. Playing with them with cars with automotive paint, and then trying to add those into fine art. Fingernail polish, like the way that girls' fingernail polish is, how that wet, shiny look is, and trying to incorporate that into pieces by using oil enamels, by using resins, by using metal, like automotive car metal flake, or crushed glass, or maybe just leaving it flat, leaving it like something that's very, very natural. I mean, there's something that's really powerful about that as well, and it's still gaining a unique effect. And it's almost like a re-evolution of what Art Deco could be, maybe a reimagined process of what Art Deco could have become if it would have stayed the thing for longer than a small period of time in history. So it's always fun to revisit the past. It's always fun to look at art in a way that when we have new problems, we could always go back to the masters and look to see how maybe they solved them. What were the ways that they did it? How could you use that today to create something contemporary, to reimagine the same thoughts they had then in maybe a few modern processes or a few modern techniques that just wasn't available to them at the time. And maybe they would have done the exact same thing, who knows? With this painting, it's I write a language that nobody understands. And to try to keep some of my thoughts into the piece, I always try to solve the puzzle of like, how can I create a piece that has that same twinkle in your eye effect, but without using metal flake, without using anything that's reflective. And I started thinking about the ocean and like water and like, even though this one doesn't have automotive metal flake, I started thinking of cars, and like, can you have a freshly waxed surface on your car, and then it rains a little bit and you get those little beads of water that stick up on it. And it's great because you have a chance to see these little reflective pieces, and I'm like, well, how can I recapture that onto a painting and make the finish to be almost something that looks wet and still plays with light and still dances as you walk around it and has some surface to it. This painting is called FOAD. When I decided to do this painting, I decided to go ahead and do another technique I've never done before. But I started thinking about how we abbreviate everything. Like when we're texting and we're doing different stuff. And so this piece I did on reverse painted on glass. And since it made me kind of think about how we're on our phones all the time and how everything that we see text-wise is behind glass. And it's like, it's not written on paper, it's literally behind glass. So I'm like, often I see people write abbreviations of TTLY for talk to you later, or HYD, how you doing, or just like small little abbreviations. I'm like, so well, this is a good time to actually change the composition. I'm just going to use the acronym. I'm going to use the first letter of each word to create my thought and to create the aesthetics of the piece. But it came with a multitude of challenges. Using oil enamel on glass is not exactly the easiest thing to do. You have to have the glass so perfectly clean. The amount of layers that are on the piece and painting them in reverse is also incredibly difficult. There is a lot of metal flake that's done. There's some little techniques of adding some gold leaf on the back of the glass and trying to create something again that I always try to do is I always try to go again for the separation of smooth and rough. Well, how do you do that when you paint on reverse glass? You almost can't. To get that type of texture, you have to now start doing things like in old sign painting, they'll do glue chipping and they'll do a lot of different things where they'll maybe sandblast the back of the glass to create a surface and trying to create a separation between that perfectly smooth look and then something that's not. It's fascinating to me to just see how different how different paintings are that I do, and everyone has a different favorite, and everyone seems to gravitate towards a different style or a technique. And I think that says a lot about the viewer and a little bit about me. I'm glad I have the breadth of work that I can create so many different types of work, so many different types of techniques. But it's really nice to know that I have a viewer that can appreciate different ones for their own reasons, and I'm always excited to know what those are. It's always nice to hear from someone looking at my painting what it is that they like about it. And it's great to interact with people, because really that's what art's about, is to interact and leave something that people can come in and play with and talk about and exchange ideas. And it's great. I actually really enjoy this piece a lot.